Hello, and we are back again for another amazing episode of Women's History Month. Hashtag Choose the Challenge with my special guest, Michele Vismaya Rubin. Vismaya, how's it going?
It is going very well. It is a beautiful day here in sunny South Florida. It's actually kind of chilly. I have the windows open and I'm almost tempted to put on like sweatpants.
Well, I am so glad that you're here with us. And to our listening audience, I'm Luana Bradford, co-founder and visionary of Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness. And I am just so excited to have this dynamic group of women here because we want to talk about what they think about Women's History Month, the movement and changes that are happening with women around the world. And we are going to just jump right into it. Miss Maya, can you just tell our audience a little bit about who is Vismaya and what is going on in your world?
So my name is Vismaya Rubin. I am a teacher, speaker, best-selling author. I am also the founder of Living in Gratitude Today. But my favorite role is that of a gratitude gangster. What? So a gratitude gangster is a person who's skilled in the art of appreciation, lives life to the fullest, and finds magic in life's challenge. And it's kind of perfect when we're talking about choose to challenge. And so what I do is my mission is to create a world filled with gratitude gangsters so that people experience the effects of a powerful, simple, consistent practice, a gratitude practice. Because when we're practicing gratitude, we're happy, the people around us are happy, the world is happy. So we get to experience that ripple effect of this practice.
So Ms. Maya, and we hear a lot about gratitude and why it's important to be thankful. And for some of maybe you've heard it, but it's still a little bit of a foreign concept. So how do you incorporate that where it's not just a check mark that we do every day, but it literally becomes a lifestyle and it becomes that empowering force in your life?
So I think when I talk about gratitude, for me, it's those moments throughout the day that bring me that feeling of, even if it's for 5 seconds, euphoria, or that feeling of, oh my God, life cannot get better than this. And the way you start to practice that is, first of all, you have to start looking for them. And you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but if you're going through challenges, pick up your phone, set the alarm to go off every 3 to 4 hours. When that alarm goes off, you're going to pause, take a deep breath, and reflect, like, what are those things in my life these past 3 to 4 hours that made me feel good, that made me smile? Like, what are my gratitude wins? And something as simple as that, getting into that practice, because when we think, sometimes people think of gratitude and they think it has to be this monumental, huge experience, and it's really not those monumental, huge experiences, because those come few and far between. But it's those little pieces, those little joys of waking up and feeling the cool air, when it's normally humid and my hair is sticking up on all ends. Or yesterday I went for a walk, and it was almost like God speak, because I looked up at this tree, and I've gone on this walk before, but I happened to come by, come around a different way. And on the tip of this tree that looked like it was dead, there was a dragonfly at every tip. And I sat there and I was like in awe. And for me, those are moments of gratitude, paying attention to those things that make you just feel delight, even if it's for a few seconds.
I love that. So let's get into Women's History Month. We know all around the world it's something that all women are celebrating, and there seems to be momentum building. There's almost like a renaissance occurring among women and the men who are supporting and girding us up. So, Vismaya, can you tell us what does it mean when we say we're celebrating women, celebrating Women's History Month, and the shoulders of the giants whom we're standing on?
I feel very fortunate that I have always stood on the shoulders of giants. My mother, my grandmother, my stepmom, my aunts, they have always been part of the women's movement. They have always taught us to they've never allowed gender to be something. I mean, we talked about it. Obviously, I'm a woman, but it was never something that was, you have to do these roles. This is for a man. It was always, achieve whatever you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So and as a teacher, I realized that sometimes I pushed my girls a little bit harder, especially when I saw they were, oh, I want to be so pretty, and it's not okay, I don't have to be smart, but because I'm really pretty, it would drive me crazy. Like, yes, you can be beautiful and powerful, and that doesn't mean, like you're if you're beautiful doesn't mean you're dumb. You can be beautiful and powerful and educated and choose to be a stay-at-home mom. You can have all of that. Whatever it is your choice. And I think with the women's movement growing as it is, it's really saying to women, you have a choice. You have a choice to, again, be a stay-at-home mom or be a rocket scientist or be both. Whatever it is you decide, you have that right to decide. And it's not because you're a woman or somebody else has made those decisions for us or those declarations of what our roles are supposed to be.
Now, you mentioned that your mother and your grandmother and your aunts have always been a part of the women's movement. Can you give a little bit of that backstory?
So, when I was 7 years old, my grandmother and my mother were taking me to the streets of Miami holding up political signs. And I remember I had a black tank top, and it was like a ribbed tank top with bubbly letters, and it says, "Never underestimate the power of a woman." And those were the kind of messages I got my entire life. My Aunt Marion, who was my grandmother's aunt, used to say to me, "Read, read, 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 read. People can take away your things. They can never take away your mind." So from the time I was very little, I was always taught to strengthen my mind, strengthen my mind, strengthen my mind. My mother went on women's marches. She marched for National Organization of Women. My grandmother and my mother both were presidents of a lot of women's organizations. My stepmom also was very involved and did a lot of different things, not in the same way as my mom did, but she was also very much an innovator and basically, to the tune of her own drum. My grandmothers were definitely, they followed certain rules, but they did what they wanted to do. And then, my one grandmother, who's my star, she would basically ask for forgiveness later or cry. So you couldn't be upset with her because she would cry. So
That's beautiful to have such a powerful legacy. And I think that so many of us, as we journey through life, if we pause, we'll realize that there have been people who've been placed in and around our lives, whether it's like you with your actual family or other women of influence who come and are planting those seeds of greatness and empowerment so that we can rise up into all that we were meant to be. Yes?
definitely.
So let's go right into hashtag choose to challenge. When I saw that was the theme this year for Women's History Month celebration, I thought, wow, that's so powerful. So when you hear choose to challenge, what does that mean to you? And Vismaya, how are you challenging just in your sphere of influence every single day?
So I think for me, choose to challenge the thought is choose to challenge the stereotypes and the beliefs of what's possible for you because you're a woman. Although that has never been I don't think I've ever had to deal with that. Choose to challenge that you can be super powerful and super feminine, because sometimes for me that's a little bit of a balance I get to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very tough, and some people have called me intimidating. But then again, tapping into that space of femininity so that I am able to play both roles and knowing when to tap into that space of femininity. But I think really the idea is challenge whatever beliefs we have as possible because we're women. And for some people that's, I can only be this, or I'm supposed to do this because this is what this is what is meant for me to be, which I don't have those beliefs.
So you mentioned tapping into the different sides of you, because we are both masculine energy and feminine energy. Can you tell our listening audience what you mean by feminine energy? Because some women think, oh, that means that I've got to dummy down, I've got to be the damsel in distress. And that's not what it is. So, Vismaya, can you share with us?
I think when I say feminine energy, there is still a lot of power in feminine energy. But it also is about not having to be so tough. It's
Mm-hmm.
about being a little bit softer. It's about being a little bit more vulnerable. It's about the maternal energy for me. It's about almost being able to dance through life versus, going at it with my boxing gloves.
I love that. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about now when we're thinking about challenging, one of the biggest challenges that are out there and that we're celebrating is women's right to vote. So, in 2020, the U.S. celebrated our centennial anniversary of receiving the right to vote. And the National Association of Women, because of the pandemic, they wanted to extend it into this year. So 2021, we are still celebrating that tremendous victory. And we know that history is what and paints the story of history. We're seeing it from that lens. And very often when we think about the women's right to vote here in the US, we think of the suffragettes and we just see a certain group of women. But we don't see the African American women, the Native American women, the Asian American women, the Hispanic women who were all girding up this effort and celebrated the achievement of the right to vote in 1920, but these other subsets didn't receive the right to vote for years and years later. About that and what it means and why women then were fighting, but we're still fighting for today, right? Equality, equal pay, all of those things. What does that mean to you? And um, and even the legacy of the like your parents and grandparents, the giants that you stood on. I mean, they were still fighting for those same causes in we experienced in 1920.
I always find it interesting, when I was a teacher, I was part of the union, and I would go to union meetings, and most of the people that were there were African American. And it always struck me as these were the people that were fighting for the rights of all of us, but they were the only ones who were they were the only ones who were representing the masses. And I found that really interesting. So it as women of all colors, we have not only the right, we have the obligation to make sure that our voices are heard. Like for me, if you live in the United States and you don't have a way to vote, you have the obligation to call somebody to find a way to say, hey, help me out. There are plenty of people that can do it, because if we're not represented, we continue and we perpetuate a cycle that says, they're not as important. They don't get their voices heard. They find reasons. And granted, it's not always because they don't want to or they can't. They have children. There's other circumstances. But we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to future generations to make sure that we are all represented.
I love that. And now with I just see, and I'm certain you see it as well, there are more and more women's groups forming. And if we can get out of our own way and stop trying to do things independently in our own silos, but collectively come together, can you imagine, Vismaya, the force we would have around the world?
But you know what I find interesting? As much as I was brought up with the belief of women empowerment, I also was taught you can't trust women. You have to be careful. Women will be backstabbing. And I
Mm.
think that as long as those conversations and stereotypes are still underlying messages that we receive, as much as we want to change the world, we have to first take a look and pay attention to those. Like, what are our limiting beliefs? What were we taught as children? Because it was funny. It was very interesting to me. My mom would be on a bus going to National Organization of Women in Washington to march, But then I would get a message like, be careful. You can't always trust women. They may want your, I don't know if she said they want your man. I don't think that was her words, but they may want your man, they may want to. So there's a two messages going out that are contradicting. So I think we have to really
Yeah.
pay attention to what is it that we believe. Do we really believe that we can help each other and not always compete, and that we can, as Nancy likes to say, co-opetition? Can we cooperate and bring our forces together so that we can all move forward? And sometimes I have a challenge with that. And I get to look at that like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid they're going to steal something? Not.
Yeah.
Are you afraid they're gonna rise up in your space? And so I get to put that in check for myself.
Yeah, I agree. I have similar, at times, similar things run through my mind. You just wonder, okay, what's the real motive here, right? She really up to?
She can't be that fabulous.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I know some fabulous, amazing, beautiful, powerful women who are just kind and good. And you're one of them.
Oh, thank you. So are you. Much love, much
Little love
love.
fest.
So now this is my favorite part of the interview, and that's where I get to turn it totally over to you, and I get to sit back and just absorb the sharing of your story about the woman who you feel most impacted you and is still impacting your life today. And then I'd like you to tell our listening audience how they can get a hold of you and what lasting words would you like to leave for them.
So I've shared with you the person that is my grandma Ruth, and she was, again, this force to be reckoned with. She did things by her own book, and I'll share a very fast story with you. So when I was in high school, I lived with her, and I remember one time she had these big bay windows, and they overlooked a big lake, and across the lake was an apartment building. And I remember one day, I was running from the shower to the bedroom, and I didn't have clothes on, and she's, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to get dressed." She goes, "They're going to see you." I said, "Grandma, you do it all the time." She goes, "Well, if they see something they haven't seen before, they'll just shoot it." So I was like, "So why is it different for you than for me?" And she's just like, but she was she was a realtor. She worked for the government. She was a business owner. She was a philanthropist. She ran women's organizations. And I don't think she ever stopped. She was constantly doing things. And I think, part of my uncles would get very upset. Like, she always had people over for dinner and invited people. And my uncles felt sometimes put off by that. Like, other people mattered more to her. But I always found it as a, like, her generosity. When people would come over for the holidays, you always throw one more rock in the soup, you'll have more soup. So she, for me, was the kindest. For me, she was a badass because she just had it all together. Family was important to her. Community was important to her. Both of my grandmothers, community was really important to them. My other grandmother, her house looked like Sanford and Son because she would collect things for every organization, and then everywhere she went, she would leave a little gift. So, yeah, they were both pretty incredible. And as far as how do you find me, all over social media, Living in Gratitude Today, Vismaya Rubin. I'm on all the different platforms. And really, the mission is to spread gratitude, because when we practice gratitude, nobody wakes up and says, "I want to be more grateful." That's never a conversation. But people do wake up and say, "I want to feel less anxious. I want to feel happy. I want to feel connected to people. I want to feel joyful." And we do that by tapping into our gratitude wins, by tapping into that power, that magic of that simple, consistent practice.
That's beautiful. So what lasting words would you like to leave our listening audience?
Join me today at 12:45 on Celebrate You. And gratitude is magical. When you have a gratitude practice, when life is challenging, you will navigate through those challenges a whole lot faster. But the key is, well, I don't want to say it this way. I'm going to say it this way. The key is to start these practices when life is great. And even when life is challenging, you can still start these practices.
I love it. I love it. So thank you so much, Vismaya. To our listening audience, please reach out to Vismaya at Living in Gratitude today. If you've heard about having a gratitude practice and you really just don't know how to get that started, how to build those resources and tools for you as you journey through life's highs and lows, Vismaya is the one to help you develop what you need just for you. She is the gratitude gangsta. What? So, Ms. Maya, thank you so very much for being a part of our Celebrate You Women's History Month hashtag Choose the Challenge. It is always, always, always an honor and a privilege to sit beside you and to serve the world.
I feel the same way about you, my friend.
Thank you. And to all of you, as we always say within Celebrate You, please, please always love yourself, embrace yourself, and whatever you do, celebrate
Celebrate you.
you. Until next time.